Reason number 3,908 that you need to vote in Tuesday's general election, especially if you're in Virginia, because there are going to be very significant long-term consequences. For this particular reason, let me first explain the Virginia constitutional amendment process. First, a proposed constitutional amendment needs to have a first reference where it goes through a legislative session and passes both the House of Delegates and the Senate. Then it has to have a second reference, but this second reference has to happen in an assembly right after a general November election where the House of Delegates is all re-elected. It can't just be in any session. So these would be even year sessions only. And it again has to pass the House and the Senate. After it does so, the legislator would have to do a referendum bill / putting a question on the ballot. Now that bill is considered a normal bill, which means it would go to the governor. Now, never in the history of the amendment process has a governor vetoed a bill, but these are trying times, and we'll talk about that more in a second. Once a governor would approve the referendum, it would go to the people in a November general election, and if it is successful, then the Constitution is amended. As you can see, not a straightforward process, but our Virginia Dems did a little strategery, which I will outline now. As you know, Texas, Missouri, Indiana are looking at redistricting to the favor of the Republicans, and a reminder that Trump and the Republicans, and especially Texas with Governor Abbott, started this whole thing. So other states like California and such are looking to clap back. Virginia's very purple, but bluer by the day, if I don't mind saying so. And this is where our Virginia Democrats come in. So Speaker of the House of Delegates, Don Scott, left open a special session from 2024. Leaving it open gave him the opportunity to call back the legislator at any time. And guess what? He decided to call him back a couple of weeks ago in order to have a first reference of a proposed constitutional amendment to redistrict Virginia in the event of extraordinary circumstances, such as other states doing their own midterm redistricting. I am very pleased to say that that amendment has already passed both the House of Delegates and the Senate as of this week. Oh, remember that timing thing. The next session we will have is in January 2026, which happens to be right after a general election, as in the one on Tuesday, which means that this amendment will have a chance for a second reference, where we'll again have to pass the House of Delegates and the Senate. And these are the people you will be voting on Tuesday. Assuming it passes, again, it would go into a referendum bill or a bill to put a question on the ballot. I remember how I was saying earlier that that would have to go to the governor for signature and they could technically veto it, which is, again, has never happened in the history of Virginia. However, if you vote for Winsome Earl Sears and she somehow wins on Tuesday, let's just say that she's interesting and I can see her being the first person to ever do this. Spanberger, on the other hand, has already voiced her support for the referendum, so. Assuming all is well, it would go to the people on the 2026 ballot in the general election, and then if that passes, it would become a constitutional amendment. Now, you'll notice this is not in time for the 2026 midterms. Those would have to happen with Virginia's districts as they are, but it does give us the ability to push back on any nonsense that might happen for 2028. When I tell you that the machinations of this are just chef's kiss perfect, considering all of the tomfoolery that is going on up at the federal level, I just can't say enough. I'll also side note that when I'm railing against the Democratic Party, I am primarily talking about the federal level, Congress, the DCCC, the DSCC, the DNC. When it comes to your state and local Democrats, yeah, this is more like it. Don Scott in particular, I have personally interacted with, though he probably doesn't remember me from Portsmouth economic development days, and I can tell you that this is exactly the way he plays. Always by the rules, but in the cleverest way possible. In conclusion, you need to go vote on Tuesday. Kaythanks!